Good day, kids. Hey, how are you today? I hope you're doing fine. Well, I know you are doing fine because today we will be having another exciting lesson in Science 5. Once again, my name is Teacher Manu Palabio, your Science 5 teacher. So, are you ready? Let's begin our lesson today. Our exciting lesson today is about intertidal zone. I know you are excited to know what is an intertidal zone. What are the living organisms that live in an intertidal zone? What are the challenges that these organisms encounter in an intertidal zone? And of course, we are going to find out the interaction of living and non-living things in an intertidal zone. Now this time, let's find out what is an intertidal zone. The intertidal zone, also known as the foreshore and seashore and sometimes referred to as the littoral zone, is the area that is above water at low tide and underwater at high tide. It is called the seabed that is exposed to the air at low tide and submerged at high tide. It is the area between tide marks. This area can include many different types of habitats, with many types of animals such as starfish, sea urchins, and numerous species of coral. The well-known area also includes steep rocky cliffs, sandy beaches, or wetlands, or also known as vast mudflats. The defining characteristic of the intertidal zone is that it is submerged with water during high tide and exposed to the air during low tide. The zone can take many forms, from sandy beaches to rocky cliffs. A typical rocky shore can be divided into a spray zone or splash zone, which is also known as the supratidal zone, which is above the spring high tide line and is covered by water only during storms, and an intertidal zone which lies between the high and low tidal extremes. Along most shores, the intertidal zone can be clearly separated into the following subzones: splash and spray zone, high tide zone, middle tide zone, and low tide zone. The intertidal zone is one of a number of marine biomes or habitats, including estuaries, neritic, surface, and deep zones. Now let's talk about the interactions between living and non-living things in intertidal zone. The intertidal zone is a very harsh environment. The organisms that live here have adaptations that allow them to live both submerged with water and out of water. The temperature range can be extreme from very hot to near freezing in frigid climates with cold seas. The salinity is much higher in intertidal zone because salt water trapped in rock pools evaporates, leaving behind salt deposits. Living organisms found in intertidal zones are invertebrates like the sea anemones, oysters, starfish, barnacles, crab, clams, urchins, snails, mussels, and many more. The intertidal zone is also home to marine vertebrates, some of whom prey on intertidal animals. These predators include fish, gulls, and seals. The intertidal zone is also a home of some seaweeds. Organisms that live in the intertidal zone are adapted to crashing waves and tidal changes. Thus, barnacles cling tightly to rocks to prevent being washed away. Organisms that are exposed to air prevent themselves from drying out by storing much water in their bodies. There are organisms that can be found in more than one zone because they tend to be more adapted to the conditions in the zone. The conditions that affect the salinity of water in intertidal zone are the amount of rainfall and evaporation. Let's focus our attention to the illustration about the intertidal zone food web. This illustration shows also the interaction between living and non-living things in intertidal zone. It is an example of an intertidal zone food web. As you can see in the picture, seaweed, which is the primary producer, will be eaten by the starfish or the sand dollar, which will then be consumed by the sculpin fish. The sculpin fish will then be munched by either the hermit crab, the lobster, or the crab, which will also be eaten eventually by the octopus. And then the octopus will then be decomposed after dying. And it will again be consumed by the seaweed. Talking about the animals that live in intertidal zone are the following. Animals in splash zone life are the lichen, isopods, blue-green algae, periwinkles, and amphipods. In the high tide zone life are the limpets, the anemones, the acorn barnacles, shore crab, black turban snails, hermit crabs, and rockweed. Animals that are found in the middle tide zone life are the gooseneck barnacles, the California mussels, black leather chitons, anemones, ochre sea star, and the sea pams. In the low tide zone life are the gumboot chiton, the nudibranch or the sea slug, the bull kelp, the kelp crabs, purple sea urchin, coralline algae, giant green sea anemone. Now let's talk about the challenges in the intertidal zone. The first one is the temperature. As the tide goes out, tide pools and shallow areas in the intertidal become more vulnerable to temperature changes that could occur from increased sunlight or colder weather. Some tide pool animals hide under plants to find shelter from the sun. The second is moisture. There are usually 2 high tides and low tides each day. Depending on the time of day, different areas of the intertidal zone may be wet and dry. Organisms in this habitat must be able to adapt if they are left high and dry when the tide goes out. Sea snails such as periwinkles have a trap door called an operculum that they can close when they are out of water to keep moisture in. Waves. In some areas, waves hit the intertidal zone with force, and marine animals and plants must be able to protect themselves. Kelp, a type of algae, has a root-like structure called a holdfast that it uses to attach to rocks or mussels, thus keeping it in place. Salinity. Depending on rainfall, the water in the intertidal zone may be more or less salty, and tide pool organisms must adapt to increase or decrease in salt throughout the day. Alright. Okay kids, now that we are through discussing about the intertidal zone, I know that you may be able to answer the following questions, like, What is an intertidal zone? What are the living organisms found in an intertidal zone? How do living and non-living organisms interact in intertidal zone? Alright, good luck kids! I know you can answer all of these questions. Once again, my name is Teacher Manu Palabio, saying, God bless you, Mama Mary loves you, I likewise do. Goodbye kids! I'll see you on our next lesson, and may you all have a good one.